right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to this episode of the Exertis Broadcast podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Nicholas Smith, coming at you live from Folsom, California. Not the prison, but I am close. Well, at least I'm out. All right, joining us today is Rick Puleo from a bunker in unknown parts of northwestern United States. Rick, good to have you.
Great to be here. Perfect. Always.
Love it. And joining us today, back again for more pain and punishment, Mr. Chris Burgos from NewTek, here to talk about some cool new NewTek stuff, I assume. Chris, where are you coming from today?
We're out in Old Bridge, New Jersey, and we're actually technically in the background using Bridge to do this production.
Okay, so you're using Bridge, but you explained this earlier. Tell me what the actual crazy chain of custody that your video is going through.
So I'm currently in the process of moving, and TriCasters, amazing as they are, it's a lot of rack space for me in my little apartment. So I actually have a studio space set aside where I have my TriCasters. From my location here, we're doing webcam and microphone into the Bridge via screen capture. And then at my TriCaster side, we're doing the green screen, we're doing a little bit of audio cleanup, and then we're coming back over the Bridge into this Teams call. So this is an entirely Bridge-based production without you guys even trying to do it.
Yeah, so this is Remy to the nth degree here. Yeah, you Remied yourself before bringing it over to us on another chain. It's great. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yes,
I love it. All right, so today we're going to talk about what NewTek just announced and launched. And I'm really excited because it's a product that we were, kind of Dr. Cross was hinting a long time ago. Oh, we got big stuff coming, new things coming. And today we're going to kind of dive into what that new thing is. Now, I do have a handy dandy PowerPoint. I know that breaks the rules of the show is to show a PowerPoint, but we are going to bring up a slide or three just to show the audience kind of what we're talking about. Delana, magician behind the keyboard, if you'd bring up our slide deck for the world to see. All right, so... Oh, I got to move the mouse over to that screen. There we go. Okay, ready. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and cue presentation. So this is the brand new NewTek CaptureCast. Okay, so if we look at the lines here on the screen, it's IP-based lecture capture, micro broadcasting, right? I mean, really, this is an appliance designed to do multiple lecture captures in a single appliance, right? I mean, as in shortest term as possible.
Yeah, basically. I mean, that's what we're trying to accomplish is we're really trying to enable what we've seen this a lot in the educational space, but NewTek has been looking at sort of enhancing this, making an appliance that makes it easy to do your sort of lecture capture. But as with all things, we're giving it that IP spin with NDI, but we're also looking at just like micro broadcast. And I think we're going to sort of expand people's minds a little bit. But I want to just make a quick note here. And I think you sort of led us with this really well, Nick, is that this is not a TriCaster. This isn't a 3-play. This isn't a PTZ camera. This is like a new space for NewTek to be in. And so I want us to sort of look at it through that lens, knowing that NDI exists. And I think that'll start to help open up people's minds. Normally, we do things that are like 1 degree away from a TriCaster. We were talking about a little bit of TriCaster setup before. And I really want to look at CaptureCast as like a fresh set of eyes into a different space. And that's where we're going to focus, sort of like differentiating these two things because, well, everything speaks NDI and NewTek is very integrated. CaptureCast is going to do some really unique stuff.
Okay, so let's attack that point for just a quick second. I want to hit you said micro broadcast. When you say micro broadcast, what do you mean by that?
So we're traditionally thinking about larger scale broadcast setups, right? Even this Teams call is maybe, or the Zoom calls that people are doing. These might be a little bit larger in scale, but when we look at micro broadcasts, I look at sort of like stepping away from the educational space, which I think people understand lecture capture, and we'll talk about that, what cool pieces we're adding there. But when we're talking about micro broadcast, there are Fortune 500 companies that are doing HR compliance. There are specialty training facilities like medical facilities where they're just doing a small little simple broadcast setup that needs to go out to a select number of individuals within their team and needs to be recorded and made for VOD. Like they don't need all the sophistication of the tools we traditionally talk about at NewTek with like a TriCaster. That's what we're looking at. We're thinking about a micro broadcast. So really small setups that are inside your organization. You guys at Exertis might do some micro broadcasts throughout the year where, hey, here's a new product that's coming out. We want to talk about that with our team members. Here's how we demo it. Here's how we show it, right? This isn't something for mass consumption. This isn't something we're going to see at a larger scale, not something we would broadcast publicly, but that's what we're looking at in this micro broadcast space.
Okay, so it's interesting when we talk about sort of micro broadcast, because if we think about it, like lecture capture traditionally is a teacher in a PowerPoint, right? If we look at the old school version of lecture capture, we get the PowerPoint and we get sort of a little image in the lower right-hand corner of whoever is giving that presentation. And if we have to put a more controlled experience behind that, you have to have an operator and a person to sit there to actually say, well, let's go PowerPoint, let's go back to person. And so now we've got a full broadcast, right? And so I kind of look at this micro broadcast as sort of crewless to a certain degree, right? Because now we're sort of saying, okay, well, we know all the sources, all these NDI sources we want to capture and make them part of the session. But I don't need a crew to start it. I can schedule it, which I think is really interesting with CaptureCast, because now we've got this sort of, hey, let's put a schedule to this. Let's set up these regular sessions that are going to happen. And then because it's a appliance approach right here from a thing that's not in the room, like a TriCaster might be, you've got the ability to run multiple rooms now off the same appliance. And so we can sort of kind of scale out these broadcasts to become multiple micro broadcasts. So I really like where this product is going, but you're right. The very first couple of calls that Rick and I got on this were like, hey, how do I plug this into my TriCaster, or where does this work? And it's like, no. This is not a TriCaster, as you said, and this is not a production tool. This is a broadcast tool for capturing volumes of data from multiple sources and giving a new way to sort of ingest and integrate with these different sources simultaneously. And a big piece of this, when I look at it, is really how you're going to treat the data afterwards. Right? Is it, Kaltura? Is it Panopto? Is it, what is that application that we're sort of going to deal with after the fact? And that changes a lot of how you're going to use these boxes, or use one box, I should say.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. There's this whole enrichment concept that we're doing with CaptureCast, adding metadata and tags so that when we hit one of these ecosystems, you're talking about, these Panopto and things of that nature, Kaltura, these are already well known in that lecture capture space, but I think you'll start to see these bleed over into other industries because they're really useful tools. Everything we're talking about is designed to be low touch point. The CaptureCast runs headless. The templated sessions means that I can really easily just do my job as a teacher. I don't also have to learn the production side. And I think, with the three big brains we have in this call, between myself, you, Nick, and Rick on this call, we've probably designed 100 different schemes of like simplified control to do this with more elaborate tools. But what we're doing with CaptureCast and that enrichment to those delivery platforms is to just make this as simple as possible and repeatable. So this isn't a teacher doing one lecture a week. This is a teacher doing 15 lectures a day. We're looking at professors doing this kind of content where, attendance is relative in college, right? You don't necessarily have to be in the physical class to need to get this information. And then on the other side, in the K through 12 market, we're looking at all these cool little pieces that we can work with, like getting this system to an AWS platform and then getting transcript and having that transcript data now be available so that if a teacher went over a lesson about, the Revolutionary War and they really want to hit a couple points, somebody could read the entirety of the lecture, the entirety of the classroom experience. So CaptureCast definitely sits in a different place. And you were talking about these delivery platforms. It hooks into all of these things, whether they're Google-based platforms, things like YouTube or such. We talked about Kaltura, Panopto. There's a lot of different places we can go to. And so
Delana, let's pull up the slide here for the audience while Chris is talking about this, because this is really important. And Chris is that slide here that kind of showcases all those different platforms.
Yeah, so we're going through ease of use on the left side of that screen. It's an NDI-based device. It's a computer. We're capturing some kind of screen or something like that, or there's a whiteboard. And then we're getting that into the CaptureCast for our recording, our streaming, and that enrichment of content, which I think is important. But getting to these endpoints, these video education platforms, it works with all the stuff you want to work with.
Let's attack 2 points on that one. So the first one is the teachers, right, or the people lecturing. They're not trained video professionals. I mean,
exactly.
let's face it, they're professors that are teaching about, microdynamics or something. I mean, or macrodynamics. I mean, there's just all these, like, let's face it. I mean, these are not the type of people we're going to put a TriCaster in front of and say, okay, have fun. So the goal here is really to say, let's take the overhead off of that so they can focus on being a teacher, but we can create the experience that we want the audience to have. Right, by capturing all the different streams simultaneously. And there's two kind of platforms. So if we look at the top bubble and the bottom bubble in the slide, right, there's sort of two different experience windows there. And I would say what's most important to me, that experience window on top contains education platforms that allow for multi-channel video playback. Right. And this one's really key to what you guys are able to do. So if in the classroom we've got a video camera plus a presentation plus an overhead cam or something else, right? Traditionally, the person, like in our case today, Delena's deciding what the audience sees because she's here listening and defining what the audience should see. But in these LMS platforms or video education platforms, the consumer can actually make the decision for themselves in the moment. Right.
I think if we take our mind off of the traditional lecture, right, think about a medical facility where, like, there's probably a camera on the doctor performing the surgery, and then there's probably a camera of the patient that's overhead, right? As a student learning from this or trying to understand what's going on in this very complex environment, I may want to choose what I'm looking at. And you just point the traditional point we're doing where you have a team member kind of guiding what the audience is seeing, but with one of these platforms, they're actually getting both streams and allowing the end user to be like, hey, I want to grab this piece. Or, hey, can I bring a picture-in-picture so I can see the PowerPoint full screen, but maybe I want to have the professor in the lower end corner. Or actually, I want to move it over here. It goes beyond just what we're used to. Again, as I would consider all of us on this call sort of like power users in any of this perspective, right? All of this sounds pretty trivial for us. But if you think of the wide berth of different kinds of students from K to 12 and into collegiate, you can allow for different kinds of learning experiences. And so this is like a ease of use tool for the teachers to operate. And for the student, for the recipient on the other side, they can learn at their own speed. And I think that speaks to the way things have gone, right? We have a lot of different things we're trying to accommodate for so that everyone can get educated. And with these different platforms now, the end user sort of can say, hey, you know what? I just need to see a slide. If I see the professor, that's going to distract me. But someone else maybe want to be switching through and getting all these camera angles. And so allowing for students to learn at their own pace is a big piece of what those platforms do. And now with CaptureCast, we're just going to integrate really seamlessly and provide that content the way you need to do.
Let's, Rick, you kind of brought up something to me early on when we were first talking about this, which was the enrichment side. You were kind of keen on that. And in our world, coming from sort of the post-production world, enrichment is metadata, right? And metadata, like if you go old school film, it's, content is king and the metadata is queen and she rules the world, right? So metadata becomes like super important in this. And Rick, you kind of brought this one up to me early on, was that you were excited about what you could do with the metadata at the capture level.
The fact that you can essentially give it some basic metadata, the name of the class, the date, just the name of the instructor. I mean, just some of that rudimentary information being tagged right at the beginning, just kind of like just speeds everything up in terms of exactly what Chris mentioned just now about having the experience for the end users. I mean, the fact that you can just quickly and add that data right off the bat without spending a lot of time of knowing an asset management solution, just saying, look, I need to name this lecture Chem 101, start recording, and away you go, which is incredibly powerful. And the one thing that I saw that really kind of a feature that I saw that I was really intrigued by was the auto slide change detection, where if you are doing PowerPoint, it can automatically hit little markers every time that slide changes, which is brilliant, really, when you think about it, because you can quickly and easily get to the points of the material that you need to get to.
Yeah, and that's where that metadata enrichment comes in, right? Because that again allows a student who, you're in lecture, you were in the room when it happened, but you want to go back to that moment in time. You could thumb through the slides, right? Find that slide and then just check that and say, that's where I want to start my experience now, right? Which is way better
this is what I need to review. This is what I need.
Exactly.
This is the information I need to review right now.
Well, and it's funny because, are you first, Chris?
Sorry, Rick, you were telling me you went through the class on CaptureCast and what we produce in NewTek University, and some of that is Kane mirrors makes this whole nice piece of video content that goes back and forth between PowerPoint and some use case of the system. But if you could just have Kane's PowerPoints and be like, all right, I got to study for this exam, right? And I would be like, all right, I just got to cover that last little bit. Go through the slides. Okay, here's where we're at. This is the piece I need to learn. Again, going at that, learning at your own pace, and the fact that people's lives are busy. You could be an adult returning to college. You got kids going on, and you got engagement. So I watched the first 30 minutes of this lecture. I'm going to pop back into the setup and go, no, I saw all of these slides. Okay, here's where we want to go to. This is what I need to learn.
No, it's brilliant. I mean, it's necessary, and I think that this is the big delta. I mean, oftentimes we've tried to push TriCasters into this type of production, but these are some of the features they were lacking. And the reality, as it comes down to, is these aren't TriCaster problems to solve. These are CaptureCast problems to solve, right? And it's if you jump over to the next slide, Delana, this one's really interesting to me because we often have clients who will try and throw a TriCaster in to run many rooms off of MEs, and it's not always the best experience. Here is where that big departure from to say like, hey guys, this isn't a TriCaster, this is a lecture capture appliance. You can run multiple rooms from a single appliance, right? And that's very powerful because now it's sort of, from a cost standpoint, in an infrastructure standpoint, fewer servers, fewer devices, running more rooms, right? Which is where everybody wants to get, at that point. So now there are some logistics of this. It's 8 NDI feeds per box, right? And so
or 6
full resolution.
Say what, Rick?
Yeah, I was going to say that's 8 full resolution NDI sources.
Okay. But that's good to know. And is there the ability to go beyond 3 rooms, or are we kind of saying, look, 3 rooms is its max, 2 cameras each, or?
This is configurable, right? I think all of this is going to be scalable, but also it's an NDI environment, right? So I could have a very sophisticated, and we haven't got to this, like the automation templating part, and I've talked about it, but NDI kind of lives everywhere, right? So if I'm not always going through the same 3 rooms every time, but everything's NDI'd, all right, well, we're just going to roll over to these systems. We're going to go from this part of the university to this other part of the university, right? You now get the benefit that we always talk about, and I know you guys understand in this call, but NDI living on the network is this big benefit in terms of, well, my 8 sources don't always have to be these exact same 8 sources. And so what my 3 rooms are, or the amount of covering, can change. And that's where that piece of automation can be really flexible as well. It's an NDI source, so things get a little bit flexible. So there's going to be a lot of times where in a more nuanced application of this thing, where it's maybe just the one box and it's serving a greater number of rooms, but in a given moment, it's only doing a small section of that stuff.
So let's talk about that templating for a minute, because I think that you're right. That is very important, because it's sort of, you hit it earlier when you said there are so many commonalities. The teacher teaches the same every week. The content is different, but what they're teaching, the style of their teaching. I use presentations. I use an overhead camera, right? And that's where those templates come in, if I'm correct, right? It's about crafting a template around that teacher style, assigning it to them so that every time their schedule comes up, it records in the fashion that it needs to for that particular instance.
Right. The template is what sets this apart, I think, in a lot of ways for ease of use. It's why the teacher doesn't have to learn the system. It's why the system runs headless, right? We make we're a K through 12 university. We're going to make our 8 tracks of templates. And this is going to do the majority of the heavy lifting. So the teacher just kind of goes. Scheduling time can be a part of that. So if you're a professor and your lecture starts at 1:30 every Wednesday, you just start the template, and the template will automatically start recording, and it'll be listening to you, and it goes. If you're at the school level, you might have something that's a little more toggleable. You might have something where, hey, you know what? When I interact with the system, then start recording. Especially, I think, if we're going down to the young kids part of that. You're getting a first grade classroom, and that's chaos for the first 5-10 minutes, just wrangling the kids together. So we wouldn't necessarily start the scheduling traditionally. We'd wait for the teacher to interact. But because the templating's so defined and easily usable, I don't really have to worry as a teacher. I know, okay, hey, now we're going to engage with this lecture capture platform. I'm going to start recording my lesson. They're not going to think in these, fancy business words that we're using. They're going to say, hey, I got to start my lesson now, and here we go. So making it very easy so that from the professor all the way down to the kindergarten teacher, this is all usable. These templates are going to allow for that reproducibility. And again, not just for one class a week, for every single instance of what they need to do.
Okay, let's part from education for a minute. Delana, throw up this slide here for a sec. This is the part that is, to me is very exciting about this product. When we look at this slide, education is a big piece of it, but look at all the other sort of like core verticals. Now, granted, look, I'm sure if we sat here and really, slammed our heads against each other for a while, we'd come up with 5 other verticals that this would fit into. But the reality is just right here, this encompasses a lot. And what I love about this is there's no esports on this. There's no broadcaster, TV station, house of worship, none of the usual suspects that we sort of think about when we think NewTek, right? This is sort of as you said, this is a completely new vertical and departure for you folks at NewTek.
In our pre-show, Rick and I were talking. I think, Rick, I want to give you give you a little leeway here and speak about one of the use cases you thought.
We recently had one case where we had a public organization that needed a public service organization that needed to interview sadly victims, and they needed to get information out from them and be able to quickly and easily walk into a room and record this vital information without any intrusion, without anything else. CaptureCast is an ideal solution for them now, because with simply by entering some basic metadata and starting to record, they have these multiple streams of audio and video coming in that can be recorded. So interviews, depositions. I had another one, but it escapes me right now.
Just corporate training in HR, right? I mean, just all the places where we would traditionally, would you really want to fire up a full room of technology to solve some of these very simple processes? That is, hey, I just need to create a quick presentation and broadcast that or put it on demand, right? And that's where, when we look at sort of the non-production verticals or these non-production opportunities, I think these are where this product becomes really perfect.
Exactly.
All right, I know we're running short on time, and I want to hit a couple things. So, from a deployment standpoint, right? We got a box. There is a web UI in the box that you sort of you create your templates, kind of deploy. But when we start to get to a environment where we might have multiple systems, right? 10 rooms, 5 rooms, and you start to stack boxes. There's an additional element here, Chris, and maybe you can talk to us just a little bit about Command Center and kind of what what that does.
Yeah, so Command Center is just, the logical conclusion, as you said, is like, this thing's going to grow, right? If I'm at the university level or even at a school level where maybe I'm a district, all of this stuff is going to grow and it still needs to maintain this like ease of use. Command Center is this piece of software that's kind of going to live a layer behind the scenes at sort of the administrative level, and that's going to allow you to configure each unit to do sort of the different needs. So if I'm a school district and I have my K through 12, let's say I have my, entry school stuff, kindergarten going to like 4th grade, and then there's like 5th through 8th, and then my high school levels. Those boxes kind of need to tackle different kinds of workflows, different kinds of lectures, effectively, different kinds of classrooms. So I want to be able to admin all that from one sort of centralized location. And that's where that CaptureCast Command Center is going to really come in handy, where it can allow you to get that, real-time audio feedback, real-time visual feedback, and give you that high level of scheduling that is necessary to make all of this happen. I think that's the biggest selling point to all of this, is like, it's very scalable and it still maintains that level of like high-end automation, so that you never have to worry that like my middle school teacher and my high school teacher have to have like, they both have to know both sides of it. And just no. They don't need to know anything special. Yeah. High school teacher teaches their class, middle school teacher teaches their class, and CaptureCast is going to do the things behind the scenes. And with at an admin level, someone can go in and say, hey, you know what? We got to schedule this piece for the middle school explicitly. That there will never be an instance where anyone has to worry about that in any of the other deployments. And at the university level, at the medical level, I think CaptureCast Command Center is going to really change the way these things sort of spin up and spin down, because now you have such a diversity of content, and each one, it looks very different. Each little piece of, broadcast, micro broadcast is so different, but CaptureCast is going to make it easy on the back end.
What's the is that running on a service? Is that running on another server? Like how is it deploy?
I think right now I think currently this is an additional piece of software, and it would need an additional hardware piece component with it, because it's going to be talking with the other boxes to get the scheduling up. This is where we sort of get into the higher level of like the admin side of what we're doing. So not what a teacher would interact with, right?
Yeah.
This is what the initial, there's one little initial piece of setup when you get one of these guys, which is you set up the network and then you set up the time of day so it knows what time it is. And then after that, you never hook anything up to the box ever again. You just kind of leave it be. And then this CaptureCast command would have the same sort of initial setup where, hey, you need to get this on the network so it can find where everybody else is. And then we'll do the rest of the administration traditionally through a web browser.
The one thing that I'd like to mention that we haven't covered yet is that there's an API that's available for CaptureCast. And that's one of the things that I think is a brilliant aspect to this, because while the interface that is built into CaptureCast is very elegant, very easy to use, the ability to customize that and create one that specifically meets your needs, I think is brilliant, and what I'm really looking forward to, because obviously right now, EDU, this is a perfect fit. And I want to see above and beyond that, and being able to build out the interface, all the key elements for so many workflows are there. It's just creating that interface, which is built into it is available to you to build an interface that works best for your specific workflow. And I think that's key.
The RESTful API, I think, is what we're talking about here.
Yes.
Definitely is going to be a huge point for anyone who's already sort of in this space. I think this is, we're talking about people coming new into this, but there's a lot of existing customer base who are going to be looking at, well, CaptureCast makes a lot of sense to some of the points Nick pointed about, but it's like one system can cover multiple rooms, right? But I already kind of went with solution X, whatever. Yeah. Can I integrate CaptureCast? And with this API, the answer is there's a pathway there. So this is maybe, a little bit inside baseball, but the fact that you can hook it up to existing systems with this API, or start from a greenfield opportunity and say, hey, this is something we really care about. CaptureCast is really dynamic, and it definitely is a different product line from what we traditionally do at NewTek, where this is like entering that new space. So I always like to bring it back there, because it's NDI, and it's going to have that NewTek name on it, and it's going to do something really unique for a whole new group of people to come and interact with us on the NewTek side, and interact with you guys at Exertis, and sort of, you guys get to flex your knowledge and say, hey, we can do this. Keep working with us as a partner.
Love it. All right. Well, we gotta push to the wrap up here. Parting thoughts, Rick. I mean, first, what do you, I've kind of heard where your excitement level goes on this. What are you most looking forward to doing with this box?
I'm looking forward to presenting it, obviously, to EDU, because I got a huge soft spot for the EDU space. I'm looking for above and beyond that. I think this has a perfect fit inside a corporate environment. I think it has a perfect fit, obviously, for a legal environment. Just finding out where there's pain points out there in terms of being able to capture material and be able to quickly and easily present that material. And that's what I'm really excited about, is going, great, this is the product that you need, and this is how we can customize it to make it work exactly for you.
Nice. Chris, this is a big departure for you guys. Where's your excitement level on this?
My excitement level is actually sky high on this stuff. I'll say two things. First and foremost, I came to NewTek. My role into getting into production was I was doing productions in college. So the EDU space has led me, doing production at that collegiate level got me to the point where I'm on this call right now. So, for at one point when it was the soda fund, and now it became the lifestyle, like it is a very real sort of progression for me, and getting people exposed to more learning opportunities because of this is amazing. The other thing is, we always bang this drum, and we've done it now for 7 years plus. It's an NDI point. and more people are going to get access to this NDI technology, and they're just going to experience some simplicity with it. There's going to be teachers who are going to now learn what NDI is and say, wait, if it speaks NDI, I think it'll work with the capture stuff, right? And then their team will be like, yeah. And this sort of continues to grow, I think, what our message has been for a while, which is IP is the future. If anything, it's the present now. And this is a streaming IP device that everyone's going to get used to. So that's where I'm at. It may seem a little sort of braggadocious to be like, the CaptureCast is amazing, but it kind of is already there to be what it needs to be in terms of their micro broadcast needs. And now we're giving this NDI tool to so many more users. That is what makes me excited, because I've been a big fan of NDI now since I came to NewTek.
Love it. I mean, if I look at it from the outside, I mean, that you hit it for me right there. This is going to push people to embrace NDI faster, right? Customers that might not have before. I mean, this is really going to push them into the NDI realm, because now, there is no SDI or HDMI spigots on this. It's all NDI or nothing, right? So, but it solves some problems that, and I would say not nobody else is doing, but I don't think anybody's as prepared to handle as you guys are with this box, especially in the realm of IP production. The other half of this is the fact that it's really a server that's designed to go in a rack somewhere. And it's not a box that we have to think about how we're going to deploy it, where we're going to deploy it, put it in a rack, connect it to the network, and let it do its thing, right? And that's truly because of point A, which was NDI is in this, right? And so it's so to me, that's great, because software as a solution, right, is really where the AV, the broadcast, everybody's going, right? I hear software as a service all the time, but software as a solution is more key. And the fact that this is running on-prem and can do all these amazing things, to me, is perfect. So, it's a great time to be in the tech industry. I love it. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you both for being on the show today. Chris, where do people go to get more data on CaptureCast?
You can hit the NewTek website, newtek.com. There's a bunch of stuff there. We will actually be partnering with you guys next week at Infocom. Hopefully this doesn't ruin the way the podcast comes out, but we're going to be showcasing CaptureCast with 3 different NewTek team members. So if you have a chance to go out there, otherwise the webpage. And we are also giving live demonstrations, so you can book a demo. I've been doing them already, and we'll sort of get your mind wrapped around what CaptureCast can deliver for you guys, and you can hit the ground running.
Love it. All right. We're going to call this episode of the Exertis Broadcast podcast done. Although we're probably going to have to change the name now to the Exertis, lecture capture podcast or something. I mean, just the world is changing around us as we view it. I love it. All right. Well, Chris, thank you for being here. Rick, thank you as always for joining. I'm your host, Nick Smith, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Exertis Broadcast podcast. Thanks.